This is a demo of our EECS 598 project. So throughout the semester of human-computer interaction, we've all been focused on building interfaces that enable collaborative editing of shared documents. And our focus has been on shared documents created in the clinical space, specifically the notes that physicians write about patients that they use in order to share information about their medical decision-making, diagnostic, and therapeutic plans. And so this is the culmination of a semester of work, and it's a relatively rough but high-ish fidelity prototype that allows us to test out physicians doing their note-taking workflows and compare it to existing software and see how this workflow could be aided with software or how it could be augmented. So that we've built two versions of the application. This one that we're showing is what we refer to as the application prototype. The other one is an vision-based prototype, and you can see the link in our course project and also in the video description. But this one we built in Swift, and it runs on iOS as well as macOS devices. So I'll go ahead and launch it. And what we're initially confronted with is a home screen that allows a physician or a user to be able to pick which patient they want to go and examine the notes for and write notes for. And so we will be taking care of Miss Claire Crawley today. So we'll go ahead and search for her, and this opens up a view. And the view has a couple big components. The first one is obviously sort of this header with Claire's name, some key information about her as a patient. And then on the left, we'd have this panel that has EHR information. And so we have heart rate, respiratory rate. You could consider any other types of information that might be documented in the electronic health record as sort of structured information being displayed here. That's for reference for the physician that may be writing the notes or looking at notes or synthesizing information from notes. And so that is alongside this bigger pane that we've spent most of our time designing, which is sort of this note view. And there's a couple components inside this note view. On the left, we have a list of all the different notes. You can click through these in order to see what was written at what time. When you're looking at an existing note, you see obviously the content of the note, which is displayed in the biggest window here. You see when it was written, who authored it. And then we also have the ability, because the objective is to have collaborative editing, to see, what's the version history of this note, who wrote what. And right now what we have is very, very rudimentary, and it just really has, version history, who the author is, the creation date, and then the content of the note. But this could be sort of a version control type system, something similar to what one would see when they look up version history in Google Docs. You could potentially even do something a little bit fancier where you could, go back to previous versions and see how things have changed or where pieces of information have come from in terms of, what was the source of it, who was the author, how was it changed, etc. We've sort of kept this out of scope for the initial build because it's not key functionality for the tests that we'd like to do, but it's an interesting future area to explore. And then let's say we'd like to write a new note. Well, it's relatively simple to start a new note with this new note button, right? And then you can go ahead and we can type a note. So we can say, we saw Claire in clinic today. She's doing well. And then oftentimes notes in the clinical setting follow sort of different formulas, and it depends if you're in the hospital or if you're in the clinic or if you're even writing an operative note. And what we have sort of building off existing technologies is we have these ideas of templates, and so you can select one of the templates. You can see here a progress note, which is a daily note in the hospital, an operative note, which is written after an operation, or like a clinic note. And since we saw Claire in clinic today, we'll go ahead and use that template. and you see it sort of drops that template information into the note. We could go ahead and, fill some information in. And then once we're happy with the note, we've gone back and forth with the team or other people that we want to consult with on sort of, what we'd like to do to take care of Claire. We will finish writing the note and then it's signed. And after signing, the note is no longer editable because it represents our thought process about the patient at a certain point in time, and then it becomes archival, and it's then used to justify billing decisions and various other things. So it still exists, and you see it's been added to the list of notes that we have. Now you may want to look back at the previous notes that you've had as a physician, and maybe you're talking with Claire and she's like, oh yeah, I spoke with some other physician a long time ago and they had given me a prescription for Ativan, but I don't remember when it was, and you'd like to see when this prescription was given. Well, you could really just quickly search through all the notes to see which one has Ativan in them, and you see there's one from May 1st that actually mentions Ativan as a medication. So this is a nice sort of way we saw information being put into the note system, and this is a retrieval method that we have easy access to older information for people that are interacting with all these notes. And then finally, we have sort of a fun functionality that is, we think, potentially a way to make notes a little bit faster and a little bit more collaborative between both physicians and patients. And it's this idea of a note that is written while you're having a conversation between a physician and a patient. And it parallels the idea of using like a voice assistant or transcription software, which physicians do use. They use this transcription software for dictation often. But what we have here is sort of dictation software. And then the idea is that you could also use it not just to dictate your ideas, but also to sort of augment your conversation with a patient. And so what we built out here is essentially rough dictation software, but we'd like to explore taking it further in the future. So let's say we start a note and say, Claire is doing well today. And then we'd like to just transcribe the rest of our note. This button doesn't work properly right now, unfortunately, but if I click on it, you can see that it's starting to write down what I'm dictating. Period, new line, subjective, new line. I saw Claire today in clinic. She's doing well, period. She has no new complaints and is doing well in terms of her mental health, which she's struggled with in the past, and overall is very happy, period. And so you can see, I'll just go ahead and stop this. You can see that sort of dictation flow going there. It doesn't work very well. It doesn't actually save right now, and that's something that we're working on. But all the core functionality that we have for our two assessment tasks, which are the first one being writing a note and the second one being retrieving a note, are in this system. And the system is relatively high fidelity in that it allows us to put information as in fully loaded notes into something that is interactable by the users. And we can allow the users to actually write or dictate their notes. So it's a little bit higher fidelity than what we have with our Envision prototype. And we're excited to potentially explore it more with users and make it more refined as time goes on.